Hello, my lovely anatomists and physiologists. Welcome back to kind of the ending section of chapter 18. We're talking here about blood type, and there's two different blood types. There's the ABO blood type, which we'll talk about here. And then you have the positive negative, what's referred to as the RH blood type that we'll talk about next. And we can kind of bring that information together. Before we really get into the blood typing, I want to take a minute to define what is meant by antigen and then antibodies. And we're going to talk more about these terms or ideas as we get into the lymphatic system in particular. But when we think of an antigen, you should think about these as cell markers, meaning they're part of that cell membrane. They're actually part of that extracellular matrix, if you remember that. And you should think about these as proteins, part of that cell membrane, and then they're not recognized as self. And so the significant part of an antigen is that they're going to generate an immune response. So the gen part in the antigen is the generating immune response. Okay, so think about that. When we talk about antigens generating an immune response, what we'll see is that humoral response that we get from those B cells, from those lymphocytes, is to produce what are called antibodies. And antibodies, another name for an antibody is an immunoglobulin, which we can abbreviate as an IG. And these actually attach to an antigen. And what we'll see is your antibodies are usually like Y-shaped. So what they can do is attach to an antigen on this cell and this cell. And so what we see is that, so what I've done is I've done a little drawing of like a Y as my antibody, and then one arm of the Y is holding on to a green cell and the other arm of a Y is holding on to a green cell. So one antibody is holding on to two cells. And so antibodies very often form clumps, or we can use this fancy word agglutination, which is talking about making a clump. And so when we're talking about ABO blood type, we are looking at a genetically determined characteristic. And you're getting two pieces of information with that inheritance, or you're getting two features with that inheritance. You're getting two traits. So you're getting both an antigen marker that's actually part of your red blood cell. And of course, that's recognized as self, right? Because they're yours. And then you also get an antibody. So this is maybe somewhat unusual, but in the case of the ABO blood type inheritance, you're inheriting both the marker on your red blood cell and you're inheriting a type of antibody. Okay. And so I've constructed here a table. We've got 3 columns, and then you have 4 blood types in the header. So we have 5 rows. And at the first column, the heading is blood type. And underneath that, I have type A, type B, type AB, and type O. And then the second column is the inherited antigen marker that's actually on the red blood cell. And then the last column is the inherited antibody. So let's see what we can do here to fill in our table. Let's start with type A. If you're blood type A, what that means is you have inherited the antigen marker, what we can call A. So what I like to do is just kind of imagine my red blood cell. So I'm going to draw a circle and just like attach to, hanging off the outside of my red blood cell, I'm just going to put a bunch of letter A's kind of to represent this idea. Okay. But then you also inherit an antibody, and you inherit an anti-B antibody. So this means automatically you recognize A as self and B as foreign. Okay, if you are type B, it's the opposite. So if you're blood type B, you've inherited the type B antigen. So now if you wanted to draw your red blood cell, and then you could draw your letter B's on the outside of that cell, just to kind of, in a cartoon way, remind yourself of what that means. So B is identified as self, but then you're inheriting the anti-A antibody, the anti-A antibody. So that means a type B individual recognizes B cells as self and A cells as foreign, right? And then if you're type AB, you have both. So I like to just imagine a single red blood cell with both A and B markers on that cell, which is pretty much the way that I understand type AB. It could be that you have some cells with type A and some cells with type B, but either way, AB is self. That's you, right? And so in this case, you have no antibody. You can't recognize B as foreign. You can't recognize A as foreign because you're both. You're a mixture. You're A and B. Okay. In the case of type O, I imagine they use the O there because it's just a blank circle. So in this case, there is no marker on your red blood cells. So if we want to draw like our circle for a red blood cell, like we've been doing, then there's nothing attached on the outside in terms of A and B markers. There's none. It's empty. And so in this case, you're going to inherit both anti-A and you're going to inherit anti-B. And then what I want to do is actually, let's construct for ourselves one more column. And let's put what kind of blood transfusion they can receive. So we're doing one more column and we're going to title it blood transfusion that we can receive. Okay. All right, let's think about this. If you are type A, you can clearly receive type A. Type B is going to be foreign. So that means type AB, which has B, is going to be foreign. And then type O has nothing, so you can receive type O. If you are type B, obviously you can receive type B. But anything with an A is going to be foreign. You're going to attack it with your antibodies. You're going to form clumps of those red blood cells. So obviously that's not useful. That's damaging. That's blocking your blood vessel. So in the case of a type B individual, you can receive type B and you can also receive type O. If you are type AB, you can clearly receive your own type AB, but you can also receive type A because it just looks like normal. You can receive type B because it looks like normal. And you can receive type O because there's no markers on it, so there's no threat that you're gonna clump it up, right? If you are a type O individual, you have both anti-A and anti-B antibodies. So you are limited to just type O. You're limited to just type O. Now notice type A, type B, type AB can all receive type O blood. And so type O blood is often described as the universal donor. I said type A, type B, type AB can receive type O, but of course, obviously type O can as well. So anybody can receive a type O blood. So this is why if you have a type O, you get calls from the blood bank all the time. If you look at your type AB, that person can receive any kind of blood. So they're often talked about as the universal recipient, meaning they're kind of privileged in this sense of the blood typing and they can receive any of them, right? So they're good to go. All right, stay tuned for the positive and negative part of blood type, the RH marker. And as always, take care of yourselves and each other.